Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Scouser Tommies. I'm Jim Boardman and I'm joined as always by Jay Reid as we try and give you a bit of an insight into what it's like being a Liverpool fan on the doorstep of the club, in and around the city. You know, we whether we get to see the games in person or on the TV, we're all lovers of this club, unless you've happened to have got the wrong podcast, in which case, go somewhere else and you probably won't enjoy this if you're not a fan. But wherever you're a fan, as we've always said, once you've fallen in love with this club, you've fallen in love with this club, and there's certain standards and things we like to uphold as well as fans and so on. But, it's just good to sort of give you a feel of what things are like in the city, and the sort of talking points sometimes may not be the same as what you get with a more national agenda or even just off social media, all those other artificial worlds that you might inhabit. But whatever world you inhabit, you're a Liverpool fan, so I hope you'll enjoy the show. And Jay, how are you? A bit cold, I believe.
Yeah, just not long got back from a little journey around the local area, walking the dog. But the wind seems to be picking up, and it's a lot colder than what it has been the last few days. Even though, thankfully there's no rain. The garden's still in one piece. The fence panels are still in for now, but who knows what we wake up to in the morning. Yeah,
we had snow and hailstone and all kinds today, I think. But, been working hard all day. It kept my head down. Obviously, I never looked out the window much. Whatever measure we talk about, we just wanted to sort of give a mention to what's been going on in Ukraine. Don't want to dwell on it too long because there's plenty of places where you can get some real information on it, but really just sending a message out that Putin has got it very badly wrong. It's not the way to do things in the modern day. It's disgusting what's going on, and just feel for the people of Ukraine who was such good hosts when Liverpool played in Kiev a couple of years ago now. And I think it shows what a good place that city was, that when you look back on that day or that adventure in Kiev, that the fact we lost the game is hardly the first, nowhere near the first thing that comes into your mind. Did you get there yourself, Jay?
No, I didn't go to Kiev purely for the cost of it. Really, it was not viable. It would have included maybe some flights and driving and whatever, and given the location in Europe that it is. We got to Madrid. Obviously, it's much more accessible from where we are in Liverpool to fly into Spain. But anyone who did know who went, and, the numerous people who follow on social media who are hardcore fans of the club, we've been all around Europe to watch the Reds. I did, the result didn't go as planned, but the trip they had was more than enough, to make up for the fact that the game was just 90 minutes within, a weekend of a good adventure. And, I've been to other parts of Eastern Europe, in Hungary and Poland, Czechoslovakia, but Czechia, or however you say it these days, and Slovakia itself. There is really some nice parts of Eastern Europe which were part of the ex-Soviet Union. And, they've all got their own individual cultures and characteristics and traits, and there's really nice people out there, and you don't wish to see what's actually going on in the last 24, 48 hours, whatever, destroying a nice country that I hopefully I've not been to, but I could get to one day.
I think that's it. It was definitely a place I said I want to go back to, because the impression I got of it, obviously you don't know, is it always as vibrant as this? Obviously there's a football match on, a major football match, and it's full of Scousers as well. It's going to be a bit of a different place, but it felt like a place that was like a city that was on the up, that wanted to find its place in the world, that it wanted to be part of the world. It had its freedom and its independence. And it's just a shame that this basic dictator's come along now and wants it to go and be back to this grey old Soviet world, basically, which is what he seems to be wanting. And, there's going to be a lot of people hurt and killed, unfortunately, because of it. And after all we've been through this last couple of years with the pandemic as well, I mean, no one in the right mind would want to put anyone through any more misery, and that probably says a lot about the guy that's running that country. But we just thought we wanted to sort of, we can't not acknowledge that that's going on at the moment. But the thing is, it can be very easy to get yourself dragged into all this depressing stuff. It was the same with COVID. It's the same with this now. If you're sitting watching a 24-hour news channel and all the speculation that goes on there and goes with it, it can get quite depressing, or quite, if you suffer from anxiety, it can really play on that. So this is what, for the rest of the show now, we want to sort of be a distraction from that. So it's not, we're all going to have a laugh, we're going to have a joke, but we're not taking things lightly that are going on elsewhere. We're just hopefully giving you something else to listen to. And that includes any of the Ukrainians that do support Liverpool and do live in the city of Liverpool, or even in the UK. Anyone who is listening from Ukraine, we're thinking about you, but we're also maybe trying to give you something just to distract you a little bit from all of that. And I think the one good way to distract you from that is the old favourite, it's football, isn't it? It distracts you from whatever's going on. And if that was Liverpool's aim last night, we're recording this the day after the Leeds game, they distracted us completely from anything else, I would say. 6 goals. Did you enjoy every minute of it, or were there some things you want to pick up on?
In terms of the football aspect, yeah, it was, no complaints at all. I didn't think we were ever going to be under too much pressure going into the game, considering, United put 4 past them and Everton put 3 past them in recent weeks. I always fancied our chances to rack up a few goals, and we didn't seem to ever need to get out of second gear, which is a positive sign for, we've got a big game coming up at the weekend, which we'll touch on later on. We've got some huge games coming up for the rest of the season. It's good to know that we can put teams to bed and not seem overly exerted. Players got a run out who have not been seen in recent weeks, the likes of Curtis Jones, for example. And then, it's good to see the return to form slightly of Jordan Henderson. He's been knocked by myself and others in recent times, but the last few appearances that he's made, he has seemed to have taken an upward curve in his performance. And then, there's other masterclasses going on around the pitch we could eulogise for ever and a day, about the lad in midfield who wears number 6 and the lad at the back who wears number 4. We could go on forever and a day, but I think it was a good performance all round. Goals from the back, from the front, lads. Diaz was unlucky again not to score, and it just gives you a nice warm fuzzy feeling inside that, as you say, no matter what is going on in other parts of the world, and you cannot get too bogged down by it. Like, it will, potentially drive you crazy. And football is always a good tonic, and at these times, there's no better time to be in bed. We're fighting on 4 fronts. We've not really seen this, ever, especially on the big competitions. We fought on multiple fronts before, if you look back to 2001, with the cup treble. But this is something special. We weren't competing at the top of the league, then we weren't even in the Premier European competition. This is a really special time to be a Liverpool fan, and there is, as you say, no better tonic to draw yourself away of what's going on in the world and sit back and enjoy and revel in Klopp's masterful football team that we've got.
I think that 2001 season, in a way, we were kind of fighting on 4 fronts because we wanted to qualify for the next season's Champions League, didn't we? But that is not the same as being in for a title hit, having a hit at the title. And also, as you say, the UEFA Cup, as it was then, is not the Champions League. And as exciting and amazing as that season was, this is in so many ways so much more, so much bigger, so much more massive. But I think the thing I remember most about that season in a lot of ways is that every single game became a cup final, didn't it? And that means, your players are playing when maybe they could have done with a rest, or, a bit of rotation, that you've got players maybe having to play out of position because you're getting a bit thin on the ground because of having to play so many games. But the thing is, every single player in that side, any team we put out, anyone who was picked, put everything into it. And I think when you look at this team we've got now, they kind of do that anyway. But when they got in the sort of cup final feel, it's going to be some running. I think it's really going to be some running. I just hope that we we continue with that kind of determination, that enthusiasm, no complacency. And that is something that I've sort of fired at Liverpool more than once in the last few seasons, but not all the time. You just get those days where you feel like we've made ourselves have a bigger job than we needed to in a game. We've conceded when we didn't need to, been sloppy, and, we've left it to the last 10 minutes to try and get some real efforts on goal. And the way we have played in recent times, that's generally been enough. We've managed to find the way through. We've managed to get the result. But I just feel like the moment we're more of a team that doesn't have that complacency in there. And maybe that's partly down to the amount of competition there is, because you look at the side that was put out last night and how well it did without Firmino, without Jota, with Harvey Elliott sitting in the shadows, probably rested. I don't know if he's injured as such. It's a strong squad. I mean, I genuinely can't think of a squad we've had as strong as this. We've had some decent teams, but I don't think we've ever had a squad that's as decent as this at all levels.
No, not really. I think I don't know if Dave or yourself mentioned it on last night's post-match Raw, that the competition for places is literally back to front, apart from arguably the right back position. But
even then, you've kind of got Gomez could come in, couldn't he? And
yeah. So we're not at liberties to be short there. It's quietly got under the radar, and I think I was one of the people myself who thought the squad needed a little bit more of investment and a little bit more strengthening, and it's quietly happened. Like the signings of Jota and Konate, Thiago over recent windows, and add to that a couple of youngsters coming through in the likes of Jones and Elliott, and obviously Diaz in January. It's only been these little tweaks, and touch wood, when we have got a near full fit squad, which we're pretty close to at the moment. It's pretty hard to choose a match day. Is it 18 or something we get these days?
Yeah.
And you look at the likes of players who've missed out in recent times. There was Curtis Jones, as we picked up on earlier on. He's not been in the match day squad the last 2 weeks or last 2 games. Harvey Elliott last night. These lads are talented players, and the competition for places is high. And as you say, that the competition for places, and when there's so much on the line in terms of what's at stake for multiple competitions that we're still in, it can only drive on performances to be better and better. And Joe Matip, for one, last night we can pick up on, who's been questionable in terms of the level he's been performing at, to the one that we've seen the next sort of expect from the lad. And Konate coming against Inzban, imperious, like not seeing a performance like that from a lad just dropped in a long time.
Yeah,
and you would have no arguments if Konate was dropped in on Sunday for the final, as you wouldn't if Joe Matip retained his place. Last night he got that little bit of magic back and went off on his little adventures, which we've not seen, and was reading the play so well. The goal was an absolute bonus, but it's them little competitions for places, and Gomez again could come in, and you would not be displeased if Gomez was to start on Sunday in the cup final, because the talent of the lad, he can do it, and that goes all across the pitch. And as you say, we've been lucky across the many years that we've both been watching Liverpool, you much longer than I, to have arguably a few superstars, but it seems like we've got a squad of superstars now, and it's what we've all wanted, and you can't complain. And no matter what 11 goes out there, you feel at the moment fully confident that we're always going to come out with the positive results.
I think that's another thing as well with the squad, is how it affects the other players as well. I mean, Van Dijk is not really going to feel he's at any risk of losing his place from the other two, the other two kind of number 2 centre backs, if you like, with Matip and sort of seeming to just edge it at the moment, but Konate sort of knocking on the door to knock him out. But you don't imagine that Van Dijk's thinking that one of them is going to take his place. But even so, it makes his day at work a lot easier knowing that he's with one of those two rather than some complete and utter duffer. And I think going back to when Suarez was a Liverpool player, there were times when you sort of looked at him, he always wore his heart on his sleeve when he wasn't biting someone else's sleeve. And he would basically show his frustration that he'd just done something amazing, and he'd basically set someone up with a tap-in, and it didn't happen, and you could sense the frustration. And I think they all feed off each other, and I think, what Matip did last night was unreal, unexpected in a way, but kind of we've been waiting for it, haven't we? But that's the thing. These players sort of it's they all feed off each other. So there's the aspect of competition. I mean, certainly we've got 5 players for the front 3 now. Who any of the 5 could play. You'd be surprised if Salah was dropped, for example. But I would say the other 4 would be pretty fluid if all were fit, and you don't know which ones will play. And I think as the season goes on, that might be what we see. We might see those 4 switching around, and maybe even Salah getting a rest now and again if he needs it. But it doesn't ever look like he needs a rest, does he? I've never seen a player do so much and look so untired.
He is freakishly athletic, brilliant at football, and everything else that comes with it. And even if he did sit out for a game, I think he wouldn't want to. And if he ever did and came off the bench, he sort of comes on with that wrath of fury, like the Gini Wijnaldum against Barcelona in the semi-final a couple of years ago, where it was like, right, I'm rolling my sleeves up and I'm gonna cause the manager a big headache here. But even last night, he was, again, don't think he got out of second gear. He got 2 goals. Arguably could have had 4, 5. At the weekend against Norwich, that poor lad Brandon Williams, I think he must have went home with his shoelaces tied together because his legs were all over the place. He literally left him in a heap about 4 or 5 times. And as you say with Suarez, it was something different. We've sort of got this Suarez hybrid as has been touted with Luis Diaz. He looks like the type of player now who just, if he got left out, he wouldn't be best pleased. But it's the game you play. Like you're blessed to play with the talent that we've got. But as you say, the competition. If you're out for a game, the next game you come in, for a fact like they're going to put something out there to say, well, you can't leave me out again. Mane in the last 2 games, 3 goals, played in a new position. I thought last night he was a little bit off the boil in terms of his touch, and he's getting used to the fact that he's playing through the middle with his back to goal at times, and sometimes the ball bounced off him once or twice, but his intelligence of movement will never be lost because he's worked on that throughout his whole career. He's had to work on his movement from a wide position, but he's walking out there with 3 goals in 2 games. If anyone plays fantasy football, which I do, you're looking at the lad and going, damn, you missed out on a hell of a lot of points there. Yeah. But is he droppable for the weekend? Probably not. But then if he was, you've got another lad in Diogo Jota, who potentially might be fit for the weekend. If he stepped in, you'd be like, well, you could probably put a fair bet on the fact that he will probably do something within that game. And if Mane was to come off the bench, you'd fancy the chances that he was to come in and do something, or if it was Diaz who was left out. It's a luxury to have. We are really lucky and blessed to have this Liverpool team at the moment. We need to not get too bogged down in anything and really enjoy it, because this is a special time. It won't last forever. We've all seen the ups and downs in football. It's took us a long time to get back to the top, and now that we're here, we really need to enjoy it and maximise it. And what with him now, 4 trophies shout of, that's maximising it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know certainly for my generation, I grew up and Liverpool were winning things. I didn't really know anything else, and then it stopped. And you sort of look back and wonder if you did take things for granted. And I think once you've had it taken away from you and you get it back, you enjoy it more. And I think certainly any fan that's been into Liverpool for more than a few years has felt us being far away from everything and not quite as close to things as we want to be, and has then felt that when we've made those extra steps, has felt the difference and how good that is, and we all want to keep it. And that means we all need to get behind the Reds. But I think something you raised, and it is something that it does wind me up when you go to the game, is the amount of time in a game where there's just nothing from the home crowd. And I think you were saying it was worse than ever last night. I didn't get to go last night. I was at home using my voice at home, but you were saying it wasn't. There were some big spells of quietness last night. And I think when you play a team like Leeds, they bring loud fans, but this wasn't, as much as they got the whole allocation for a league game, it wasn't a cup game, so they didn't have the whole of the Annie Road, for example. But from what you're saying, they well and truly outsang us. And as always, the songs aren't great, are they? So it's just not is it a problem for Liverpool at the minute? Can we do anything about that as fans?
Yeah, we can. It was one of them games, as I said before we started to record. I said I'd touch on it. It was an element of a big game. It was partially, in a way, sort of like a European night, and it was under the lights. We had the boost at the weekend with City dropping points. We could and we did go within 3 points of them. We increased our goal difference, but I had the expectation going into the game, thinking, there's something riding on this, and let's go in there and have the place bouncing, and give the lad. They don't need a boost, but it's always good to have. And as you say, Leeds bring a support, whether it's good or bad in terms of what they do and say. It's not been overly great in recent times of what their actions and the words have been coming out of them people. But, they make noise, they back the lads. And at times last night, it was freakishly quiet. Like, it was almost as though, it was a 12:30 kickoff on a Sunday afternoon against Burnley, and no one could be bothered. Like, the midweek games have always got an element of something about them. It's odd, and it's not been an uncommon feature this season. I don't know whether it's something to do with ticket allocations. I've been looking for the Wembley ticket. Unfortunately, didn't get one in the ballot, and found myself following a lot of ticket sellers on social media in the last few weeks, and there seems to be a huge amount of tickets being passed on, sold on, spares available for the likes of Leeds, the likes of Norwich at the weekend. And, in one way you're seeing, fans are getting to games who maybe not getting the access that they always would like to. And, the opportunity when it presents itself for anyone to go to Anfield is special. And some people go there and wish to enjoy the experience and take it all in. And some people, I don't know whether they're just going there and they're just not aware of the etiquette, the songs and whatever. It just seems a bit flat and a bit meh at the moment.
I don't know if it's helped the way that they've changed the way tickets work now, because so going back to when there was a standing cop, you could decide on the day that you'd scrape together enough money to go to the game, because you always found a way. You might have thought you weren't going to go, but somehow you'd find a way scraping the money together and get to the game. You could literally make your decision like, well, as long as you got there,
or two before.
Yeah, and it's like as long as it's not a game that's not every game was all ticket. Very few were. You'd pretty much always go in if you didn't mind queuing up. So you could do that. And I think the sort of more modern version of that is that if you sort of know where to ask and the right people to speak to, you can all sometimes decide at the last minute to go to an Anfield game now previously by going getting a fan card off someone that who knows someone else and knows someone else, dealing with handing that over before and after the game and all the rest of it. And it might be that fan card belongs to someone you've never met and never will meet. You might be you still be paying face value, I hope, but you wouldn't sort of necessarily meet the owner of the ticket. And that's that kind of sort of ecosystem, if you like, for tickets, that economy, if you like, for tickets, is how things went. Now, it all changed, and I know the club kind of relented a little bit, didn't they, on how you can give tickets away, or you can pass tickets on, because now you can. The original plan was you would have to add 20 friends, wouldn't you, to your friends and family list before the season started, which is just mad, because you just don't know. The way things go with tickets, if you can't go to a game, you want that to go to someone who will appreciate it. It's not even about getting your money back. It's about knowing that the right person's going to have your ticket. So I feel anyway. And I've had many a ticket myself that way by people who wouldn't give it away unless they knew he was getting it. But that is so much harder now. You can send it on by email and stuff like that, but it just feels like it's not quite as accessible. That last minute ticket in the pub feeling seems to have gone. Whether I'm sure people will work around it, but it's just not the same as it was. And plenty of people are going the game, but I don't know. There's that impromptu sort of local fan, and this is I'm going to go at any visiting fans from further afield, because sometimes the fans from further afield are louder than the locals. I've definitely found that, but whatever it is, they just, I don't know, it's almost like, again, maybe that word is complacency from some of the fans. They couldn't get rid of the tickets, so they turned up. They weren't really in the mood that night because, they've had to cancel something else. And, you think they shouldn't even have that ticket if that's your attitude. But the thing is, there's people on the ground, isn't there, with that kind of attitude? You just get the feeling like they're going through the motions and taking it for granted.
Yeah, I felt like last night it was taken for granted that we were going to get the results. Leeds aren't the greatest shakes, but you still go in there, you still make some noise, and even at the weekend against Norwich, it was definitely quiet in the first half, and then it picked up in the second half, and as the goals start going in, it gets a little bit louder. But even last night, it was like I was sat on. If you were to look at the Kop, from the Anfield Road, and I was sat on the right hand side on the very back row, and that side especially, there was songs trying to get going, but fading out. The other side of the Kop, where I've sat for pretty much all the games this season, it seems a lot more vocal now. Whether there's just a collection of hardcore fans there who get the songs going a lot better as it moves along the concourse, the terrace. It seems to lose a bit of volume, a bit of velocity, but there's certain songs that people try and get going, and it's being stamped out. It's being well known that Liverpool as a city, as people aren't fans of the Tories. It's been well documented for numerous reasons. We won't get into too much about it, and there was a little bit of a tirade against them and singing it, and I think it's sort of being stamped out as we can say it, but the message is lost a little bit now, because you can only say things so much, and things aren't happening.
You save
things aren't changing.
You save it for when you need it, don't you? If there's just been something happened that you're making a statement about something that's just happened. The trouble without getting overly political, the trouble with Tories is there's always something bad about Tories, but they actually have these moments where they do something even worse by their standards, and I suppose that's the same with any government. But what they've done to this city down the years is horrific, and every so often they'll do something else, and that's when we need to shout. I think, I agree.
Yeah, make our voice heard. I think, in times of the Hillsborough campaign and stuff like that in recent times, and we've stood up and made our voice heard then. And I imagine the lads and girls going to Wembley at the weekend, against Chelsea, a notorious Tory club. Yeah. That song will be probably belted out, and that's the time and place to do it. Not Leeds. Leeds are going to come and sing, sign on and give you the whole lower league stuff. At one point last night, they were saying stand up if you hate Man U, and a few people in the main stand, fell for it. And quickly the Kop, within 5-10 seconds, the Kop belted out a Liverpool chant. We're too good for that. We don't need to do that.
No.
That's lower league behaviour, as I call it. We play lower league bingo. I've told you this before. Ticking off the chants, and it comes all the time. We're bigger and better than that, but sometimes at the moment the atmosphere just seems a bit lost. It feels like there's a bit of a discord between certain members of the fan base who want things one way and other things another way, and at the heart of it all, I think that there is a large local core bunch of fans who do go home and away, and credit to those lads for their commitment to the club, and they're the ones who come up with the songs like the Diogo Jota song and stuff like that, and they sort of unwritten rule decide, it's time that we knock this song on the head, or it's time that we get this song going, and it just seems a bit of a clashing of heads sort of thing, and all that leads to is sometimes a flat atmosphere, and at this time of the season, that's not what we need. We need to all be pulling in one direction and going the right way.
I think as well, the thing with the away fans, and I think this is why away fans at Anfield, if you like, visiting fans, seem louder, is that whatever happens at their own ground, they've gone out for the day. Loads of them have travelled together. Loads of them have been, with each other for a good part of the day. Instead of just nipping, let's face it, nowadays, a lot of time you meet someone at the ground, you literally, you haven't seen them until 5 minutes before kick-off, quite often with the person you're sitting next to and the people around you and stuff like that. But when it's an away game, there's more likelihood that you've been with them all the time and then you sit with them in the game. And that just sort of builds an atmosphere. And I think that we need to find a way that we can somehow let the Kop be sort of no ticket numbers, no seat numbers if you like. You can maybe, you get your ticket for a block and first come, first served or whatever. I mean, there's got to be some respect from people because, people will be pushing each other out the way and that. But the thing is, it's like, it's just, trying to get, I want to sit here, I want to sit here, but I just think it's a good way of doing it, that the way it used to be in the Cop when we all stood was that however you got to the game, however you paid, whether you had a season ticket or you paid on the day or whatever, you could find your way on the Cop to your mates. And then when you're with your mates, you make more noise. It's just standard how things work. If you're a bit of an extrovert, you don't care who's with you, but we aren't all extroverts, and you kind of need that bit of help from your mates around you. So I think, it'd be ideal if we could find a way that this core, the travelling Reds, could get to go to games and sit together on the Cop rather than being almost certainly, in a lot of cases, spread out all over the ground with little clusters here and there maybe. Do that, get the Cop singing, and I think the rest of the ground it will follow. The only other thing is that I don't know what it is, but we seem to have trouble getting people to know the words to songs these days. I don't want us to start putting the words up on the scoreboard or anything, but, someone needs to put the words online somewhere and just quietly nod to people that you can go and learn the lyrics before you get here.
Yeah, and I mean, there's variations of songs that get put out there, and I think I heard it a couple of times last night, the Bobby Firmino song that gets very often confused. The new Jota one, lead us to victory, take us to victory. It's out there to be found, and people will say the wrong things, or not say the wrong things, but they make their own interpretation of it up. And as you say, that the split of fans, like sometimes in one aspect you may think, if these lads are dotted around in various sections of the ground, and it'll rouse the people around them to get going, but then on the flip side of that, if they're all within one core area, the sort of fan base I look at is Crystal Palace, who are all focused within one area of the ground. They're in abbreviated hyphen things, commas, whatever it's called, quotations. Sorry, the ultras, as they raise themselves, and you get it in, European football especially. They get the crowd going, and everyone follows beyond that. And it wouldn't be a bad thing if we could get that together on the Cop. And I'm fortunate enough to have tickets within the Cop, and I'm within the back 7 or 8 rows, which are currently under the safe standing procedure, which does add to the atmosphere, does enhance your experience as a fan to be standing safely and not worry about when a goal goes in that you're going to lose your shins and end up in the row in front, and the guy behind you isn't going to tumble over you. Yeah. The lower
and to know you can stay standing up as well.
Yeah. The whole Anfield Road lower tier now is standing. Now, I don't know how that works for the home fans. Sometimes you can see the rails, so for the fact that these lads and ladies are sat down. Yeah. The away fans obviously stand, and it makes for a safer experience for them. We will see in time whether that gets rolled out across the Cop, because it's obviously going to be taken into account the families of the Hillsborough victims, and ensuring that their thoughts and feelings are expressed and put forward before Liverpool as a club roll out a mass safe standing area.
I think to be honest, the Hillsborough families and the survivors, basically standing wasn't what caused it. It was it was police and all the rest of it. We won't go over it all now, but standing didn't cause it. That was a bit of an excuse almost, that became almost like a scapegoat for it. And I mean, we got better grounds in some ways because of it. The grounds are safer, and we needed to make it better than it was. Because, I mean, even though it wasn't the standing that caused the problem, it was only a matter of time before it did. It was the fences that caused the problem. Yeah. Yeah. And the lack of attitude and the lack of sort of respect for supporters, that these are people, not animals, But, yeah, I won't go on too long about it. You're right. We need to listen to what they say, obviously.
It's taken their feelings into account, because as a consequence of that, like, Caesar stadiums were rolled out, weren't they? To make it much safer for fans to go to a game. But as we said, like, standing will never be eradicated, in especially away sections and hardcore home sections of ground. So it maybe would enhance the experience and would make people feel a bit more comfortable to sing and shout. but yeah, we won't delve into the rabbit hole. But maybe that's one thing. Eventually, if the Kop become a standing area, or even if the core behind the goal was standing, and the rest was seated and it filtered outwards, it may enhance the experience. But yeah, back to the original point, the atmosphere at times is a bit flat, and I felt at the end of the game, Klopp went down there and give a lot more than his usual 3 fist pumps, and to me that was a message of, he always comments on the atmosphere, and I think last night he said it was good. What it was like from where he was sat or stood, I don't know, but it felt to me like he was rousing the fans and saying, like, look, we've got a hell of a fight in our hands. Start Sunday.
Yeah,
you need to get behind us. You need to be with us. And he was very passionate in his actions, and I felt like that was sort of an unwritten message to say, like, we weren't great tonight in the crowd. We can't be like that again. We need to get behind the lads because they've just put 6 past Leeds. Now we need to raise our levels on the stand.
Yeah, it's right. I mean Wembley as well. I mean, let's not hide from the fact that we're playing at an iconic stadium, even if it's not the actual iconic stadium, because that got knocked down a while ago. It's a stadium that, as big as it is, and as much of an atmosphere as it can have, as England matches often prove, it can be such a place of, like, it can be just a dismal, dreary place if people don't get behind the team. It can go quiet. And I think, I don't know, I mean, certainly at Anfield, certainly in away games, certainly happening to Liverpool, it's surprising how much it makes a difference to the players on the pitch when you're behind your team, the difference it makes to the opposition as well. I've seen it. I mean, like you mentioned, Crystal Palace, that is probably one of the most intimidating grounds to go to in terms of what the fans do to get behind their team. That is the kind of place that can really, they are a 12th man. I'll give them that. I mean, they get behind the team home and away in a way that we could learn a few lessons from, I think. But, Wembley, I mean, one of the issues with Anfield might be that it's getting so big that the people who sing are getting further and further spread out. But at Wembley, that can happen. But my thing about, you travel down with your mates, hopefully there's a bit more of that. Although with ballots and things like that, you just don't know, do you? People are going to get where they can. But that's the thing. It's a final. You might not get to another one. We're fighting on 4 fronts. That might be the only final we actually get to this season. You don't know when the next one's going to be. You've got to make the most of it. And if you don't think you can, there's plenty of people who'll take your ticket off you, including the person I'm talking to now.
Yeah, I'll take anyone's. Yeah, as you say, I was unfortunate enough not to get one. The prices being banded around are absolutely ludicrous. Like, I've outed about 4 or 5 different people on Twitter in the past 2 weeks for, exploiting real fans, as I would put it. I feel aggrieved that I didn't get one. As somebody who goes to near enough every single game at home, whatever the competition, and there's people out there getting tickets and exploiting other fans for hundreds of pounds, and the top price ticket's £100. Like, you should not be doing exploitation of fans, but sadly, it's always going to happen.
No, leave that to the FA and that, because they'll do it with their hospitality packages, won't they?
Of course, yeah. But yeah, just on the stadium itself as Wembley, it's huge. Like, if ever you've visited the new Wembley, if you've had the privilege of going, it is huge, and the atmosphere can sort of be a little bit lost because of the design of it. The sound goes out where, again, referring to Anfield and Selhurst Park, the square design, the roofs that come over, the design to withhold the sound and keep it within. Wembley can be a little bit lost upon that, but anybody going there the weekend should feel highly privileged, highly lucky, and go there and give absolutely everything they got, because the lads on the pitch are going to do that. Klopp's not going to let anybody's standard slip below 100%. And we need to be given 100% in the crowd, because if you're not given 100%, then, as you say, that there's hundreds and thousands of people out there who would do anything to get there and give 125, 130%, because it's not very often we get to finals domestically. I think 2017, was our last one. And that didn't turn out too great. So, let's go there and put a marker down for the season. we were born as Liverpool fans and brought up on success. You lived through the success. I was brought up on stories of success and trophies, and it's what you'd always want to see us do. And this is the first opportunity this season to put one in the cabinet, and we've got a special affinity with the League Cup. A little plug for yourself here. There's a handy podcast on Anfield Index with yourself and Sir Kenny Dalglish. That's a fantastic listen that I really enjoyed the other day. You can point the listener in the direction of that, because if you have got any interest in Liverpool at all, which is why you're probably listening to us now, that's definitely something you should get your ears on before the cup final, because the King's on fine form.
Yes, he was.
it was a joy to listen to, but he, hammered home the fact that this competition, although it's seen by many as probably the lowest priority, at the time when that whistle goes, it's the top priority, and it's something that we've got to, get out there and put all our hearts, thoughts, minds, and voices into, and make sure we bring it home.
And it's all about making memories, isn't it? I mean, the thing is that it was a privilege to be able to speak to the King the other day. It's strange, actually, when Robbie Fowler was on TV the other week, and they were talking about his goal records and how he overtook Kenny, and whoever was talking to him and saying, "No, do you rib Kenny about that?" And he's like, what? No, I still call him sir, and it's like, it's hard to put it into context how big King Kenny Dalglish is at Anfield. It is really hard to put that into context. And I've been lucky enough to speak to a lot of former players, a lot of players who were current at the time, and so on and so forth, and managers and all the rest of it. But yeah, the King is the one who really sort of makes me. Well, the first time I met him, I hardly spoke. I was dumbstruck. So it's good that I managed to get some words out the other night. But yeah, and he is a legend. I mean, he really is an absolute legend to this club. He did so much for the club, and that's well documented. But his memory is unbelievable, and he's so quick. He may not be quick on the field anymore like he used to be, but he's certainly quick with his wit, and he remembers so much detail about the games. So please have a listen to that if you can, because it's much better listening to someone like Kenny than any of us, because he really does know his stuff. He's literally been there and done that. He was the manager in our last win in this competition, and he was a player in our first ever win in this competition. So hopefully one of those stats will be going away soon. But one thing that's available now on Anfield Index, whether you're a subscriber or not, you can listen, of course, preferably as a subscriber, because then you get to listen without the ads, and there's all the other bonuses you get, but plenty of other people will tell you about all that. Have a listen to that if you can. What I didn't do was I started off by talking to Kenny about a final that we didn't win in, like his first final, League Cup final with Liverpool. But what I didn't do was talk about another one that happened where we lost. So we were thinking maybe for this, we'll talk about some final memories. And I thought, well, maybe that's one to just mention briefly, is the League Cup final, Liverpool against Arsenal. I'm just trying to remember what year it was. And at the time, Liverpool had never lost a game when Ian Rush had scored. And Ian Rush opened the scoring, and then we lost 2-1. And that was one of my worst memories of a final. And I'm saying that because I know Gags is going this weekend, So just to let him know that he's not the only one who can sometimes see us losing a final. But yeah, that felt like a jinx at the time. And thankfully I've seen us win things as well in finals. But yeah, that felt like I was being some kind of jinx then, because here we go. Ian Rush scores, you thought you were going to win, and we didn't. So that's one memory I have. But the thing is, someone said to me once outside of Wembley, it's better to have been there and lost than never to have been at all, which at the time I didn't take very well. But as I look back, yes, okay, you're right, it is. And being in the final's not as good as winning the final, but it's still great. It's still an experience. And as Kenny said the other day, getting in the final is all about making those memories. And as I mentioned earlier with the Kiev thing, the game itself is a tiny part of my memories of that experience. And if you get to go to a game at Wembley, or even if you just watch it on TV, there's so much more to it. So just hope you enjoy it. But that's one of my bad memories. And I think there's plenty of good memories. And I think I'll just briefly touch on it. The good memories, that last one, that one where we won the final with the Charlie Adams penalty that still hasn't landed.
That overtook my head, that. It nearly took me bobble hat off. I was on about row 30 as well, and it flew over my head, so I don't know where that landed.
I know, it was like, what the hell? And I'll be honest with you, Kenny the other night mentioned it, and he still sounded like he was a bit annoyed by it still. So But anyway, it didn't matter because we won, didn't we? But that was on pens. And I think something that other ones I was talking to Kenny about, a lot of them went to extra time and replays. So things have changed. It's penalty spots and things now. And we've got a man between the sticks on Sunday who might have something to say if it goes to pens, because obviously Allison's supposedly not playing in this one. So I know Kyle Hurst's supposed to be good at pens. So Kenny says. But what would you quickly cup final of yours that springs to mind that you remember?
Well, as I say, I was at that 2012 one. Thankfully, we came away with the trophy. I was also at I think it was 2017 when we lost to Man City.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I was slightly under the influence of a few beers and had to watch the first half through one eye, because we were that high up, and we weren't quite sure of me whereabouts. And there's no better feeling when you nick an equaliser in that one. I think it was Coutinho, but sadly we lost out. But one of my old classic memories was one that I didn't go to. I think it was Birmingham, 2001 or 2003. I think it was 2001. Robbie Fowler hitting a volley / strike from about 25 yards, looping into the top of the net.
It was with the roof on at Cardiff, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think we'll say 2001.
I think it was the first of the
treble season.
Treble, yeah.
And as a lad who grew up idolising Robbie Fowler, it was, if he scored, it was as with you, it was Ian Rush. For me, it was Robbie Fowler. If he scores, then that's the game for me. And that started the ball rolling for that season. It was a classic cup team, but I just remember that was probably my first real experience as a young lad growing up. I will have been around about 13 at the time. You're really into your football then, because I do vaguely remember was it 94 final with McManaman, the Coca-Cola Cup.
Yeah.
I remember the actual McManaman getting the Man of the Match award, which was like a bronze statue of a player sort of striking a ball.
They still do that, I think. I think that's like I think that's given out every League Cup, yeah.
I don't really remember the game as a spectacle, but 2001 was one that I do remember. And I also remember going to Liverpool versus Chelsea, and it was Mourinho's first season, and we were sat just behind the dugouts, and he gave it the old shush to the Liverpool fans, and that didn't turn out well for him. Just a couple of light-hearted memories, and at the time it was, Liverpool Chelsea toxic rivalry. That's where it sort of started off with Benitez and Mourinho, and it's what led us to what they would deem a big rival today, where we just see that another team. It was where it all began with the two clubs, and it brings us full circle to this weekend. The manager that they've got, Tommy Tuchel, he's a bit of a character, I think you could say, and I think he probably looks up to Klopp as sort of a idolisation of German football manager.
Yeah,
not the way Mourinho and Benitez looked at each other. That was slightly more envious, but it does whet the appetite, and I'm sure going into the weekend there'll be replays of these finals that we had in recent times. But I've had good and bad. I've been there. I've watched on telly. This weekend it'll be a telly watch for me again. But it just gives you so many memories of these things. I can't seem to remember too many FA Cup memories where, as Kenny was saying on the podcast that you did, the League Cup seems to just have a special affinity. Liverpool in the League Cup, we've won it 8 times. We need to get back on the top of the mantle of winning it 9 times if we can this weekend, because City have hoovered them up the last few years, and there's that something special there, and you just want to win it because the season's still going on, and in effect, Chelsea have been awarded for some bizarre reason the opportunity to wear the Club World Cup badge on the kit after we were only given the allocation for one game. Like, it is a trophy that you can sort of present round, and if you can go round the rest of the ground this season, you're not going to walk around with a Carabao Cup sticker on your arm, but you can all say that we've already got one in the bag. It's one more than anybody else. So yeah, let's go down there and put a marker down for the rest of the season.
I mean, it could be. I mean, whether he'll actually play or not, we don't know. But he's bound to pick the cup up if we win it. And if nothing else, it's a chance for another Hendo shuffle in front of us. Even if it's on the TV. I mean, it's not the biggest cup to look at, but it's big enough. It's at Wembley, which is iconic. It's a warm up for maybe we can get to the final again in the other cup. Just I think though, when you said you're not going on Sunday, it's like there's still like with me, I'm always sort of like thinking I'm not going, or am I? And that the reason for that is because the amount of times I've had a ticket at the very last minute. I mean that Kiev game, I had to actually go over anyway from a sort of work reason. So that's why the cost was okay for me, because I sort of got a lot of stuff was sort of within work, covered by work at where I was working at the time. But the actual match ticket I got on the plane out there, so I could have easily spent a day not anywhere, a day in Kiev without going to a game. The other, my closest one though was actually, I think it was the cup final, the FA Cup final, the season where Kenny's last season as manager. So we won the League Cup, and then we had the FA Cup, which we didn't, unfortunately, do well with. And I sort of mentioned it the other day, and I got my ticket absolute last minute. I had to get it. I picked my ticket up. I'm pretty sure I picked it up in Liverpool at sort of 12:30, and the match kicked off at 5. So we had to get down there. The missus drove. She was going to drive half of it, but she ended up driving all of it. And then she insisted that we drive to the hotel and make my own way from there, which made sense because she wouldn't have got near Wembley. And somehow we managed to get down there and managed to get into the hotel, get a cab and get to the ground, and got in just in time to miss the national anthem, which is perfect for me.
Of course.
But one of my memories was, and I mentioned it briefly, was I looked out the window, I was going up this escalator, because it turned out these tickets were quite decent ones. I was going up this escalator, and out the window I could see these steps and people trying to get in. And Alan Hansen and his daughter were legging it up the steps as if they'd gone to the wrong entrance and couldn't find the way in. So it was just one of those sort of surreal moments that Alan Hansen's running up these steps to get in this ground. As he was, that wasn't a great finish. But again, this is another thing. It's the memory of that day, of the madness of getting down there, the madness of getting the ticket at the last minute, the surreality, is that the word? Of seeing Alan Hansen there like that. That's what I love about this game. It gives you so many good memories. Even the bad times can be good.
Yeah, and I've got memories of going down to this game on a train and getting up early doors and boarding the train. I think it was it the Cardiff game? There was about 5 or 6 of us jumped on a train at Liverpool Lime Street. Off we went down to Birmingham, swapped at Birmingham, down to Watford, tube from Watford over to Wembley, and it's that sense of a Joel Matip adventure almost. Yeah. Where you're going to places you've never been before. You're seeing things you've never seen before, and as in a hark back to last night, the outcome is sometimes better than what you'd expected. Sometimes it's not, but it's that sense of camaraderie. There's the sense of doing things with your friends and going to these places. And Wembley, I never got the pleasure of going to the old Wembley, and for someone like yourself who did it is always the original Wembley. To you, this is the new Wembley.
Yeah.
And I got the joy of going to the Millennium Stadium, which was a slightly different experience because you sort of have to get a coach there from Liverpool. It's not as easy accessible. But as much as Liverpool and Scousers are disconnected from, the national team and are disconnected from, the whole, politics and the royal family and all that business, you'll probably find out for yourself Sunday if you tune in and hear the national anthem, how it's well received by Liverpool fans. There is that special air of going to the national stadium. It is something special. It's not like any other ground you sort of visited. It is, a little bit different. And we called it Anfield South for a reason. And there's a potential this year, given the political aspect of what's going on, that if all goes well in competitions, we could be going there 3 or 4 times, and then it would be, re-establishing Anfield South as a destination for us. That would be something that we could, really reclaim as our own.
I think like although the stadium's changed, I think one thing that hasn't changed or doesn't feel like it's changed is the so-called Wembley Way. You know, that sort of long road, if you like, from one of the tube stations to the ground, and the one that's always full of fans making the way, and you kind of get split off to whichever end you're going to be, whichever your end is of the ground and stuff. So this, and I still think, and I mean, it's been there so long now, it's got its own sort of iconic status. I mean, the Twin Towers were the Twin Towers, and standing at Wembley was an experience that I'll never forget. It was very steep terracing from what I remember. It felt like every sort of step was like the height of 2 steps on the cop kind of thing, but it was a special place. It was loads of atmosphere, and there can be atmosphere at this Wembley. It's just that there's times when there's not. I don't think they help at this Wembley because they play music and stuff as loud as they possibly can. And in the end, it's almost like people can't talk to each other without shouting. They definitely can't get songs going very easily. I think, sometimes I just think, shut up and let the fans do it. This is football. This is what the atmosphere is. I mean, okay, I suppose if it is like Tottenham against Arsenal, it's going to be quiet and you need to play music. But if Liverpool are there, you don't need to really, do you? Not for a final.
No, there's nothing really annoys me more than the falsified atmosphere that you see at like the likes of Wolves do this pathetic light show and Spurs, dramatic music and Spurs, and it's all a bit Americanified for me. And as much as I love me American sports of the NFL, for example, the best NFL stadiums are the old stadiums, the ones that aren't LED or plastered all around and super screens. It's the old stadiums where it might have a scoreboard at the end, each end of the ground, and the fans create the atmosphere. Like it is highly annoying, this whole dramatic music and light show business. But harping back to what we said earlier on, like the Liverpool fans should be in there in fine voice and fine fettle, and we will make enough noise. It doesn't take much to out-sing Chelsea because they've only got one song and it's just the repetitive name of the club.
They've got that other one as well, haven't they? Where they sing about someone who fell over him and gave someone else a league title or something.
Oh yeah, but it might be drowned out by the waving of the plastic flags that they've got. Yeah. That whipping noise of the plastic against stick. But yeah, it's just it in a way it bugs you, but then at the same time you just have to laugh and think, have you not got anything? No originality about you that you've only got 1 or 2 songs, and for a fact that if there's an alternative commentary to what Sky will be offering, then I'll be trying to find it because they'll be playing into the narrative of how great the atmosphere is and how much the Chelsea fans are contributing to that, when in reality it'll just be us because we've got a plethora of songs, a plethora of atmosphere. We'll bring the colour, we'll bring everything with us. And more. I'm looking forward to it more than anything. That it's an opportunity to put our foot down, and as I said earlier on, just take us into the rest of the season. This is what Pep's had a stranglehold on. However much you value the Carabao Cup, he clearly does, and it'll probably bug him. It'll already be in his head that we're there and he's not. If we put this trophy in the cabinet on Sunday, after they've probably been to Goodison Park and tickled Fat Frank's belly and taken the 3 points and 5 goals away from there, because we all know that's what's going to happen. It will still be in his head and bugging him that we're 3 points behind, or we'll be 6 by Sunday probably anyway. But we'll have a trophy in the bag.
Yeah,
and that'll be bugging him, and we'll revel in it. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and look down the line to April 9th or 10th, whatever it could be that we face Man City now. But I'm more infused by playing the mind games, because he will self-implode. We've seen it before. We know what's going to happen.
It's in our hands as well. That's the thing that's going to wind him up more than anything, because whether it is a 6-point gap or not, I mean, if it's not, it's definitely in our hands, but it's in our hands if it's as things stand, because we've got the goal difference, and if we beat them when we play them, then as long as we match them for all the other games we all play, then we've won the league. It's unless they do a lot of 10-0s or something, the chances are that we'll we'll be ahead of them, and it is in our hands, which is a good place to be. And, we'll see what kind of what they're like with nerves and stuff like that as the season goes on. They're not that kind of team, but, there's so many twists and turns in a season that you can get. And I think what I love about Liverpool is we always take it one game at a time. It's hard to do that when you've got a cup final coming up. So there was a lot of talk, I'm sure. I mean, one of the reasons I think you would have been expecting a more atmosphere at Anfield last night would have been there's a cup final on the horizon. It's usually the pre-cup final party, the last home game before Wembley, isn't it? And that would have been another reason you'd have expected a crowd. But, we can look ahead to this game, and then when that's gone, we just look at one game at a time. But, if we keep playing the way we are and we keep finding these results and just showing this determination, then we could well be winning that title. Certainly going to make them fight for it. It's going to be, it's a long season, and you're like, it's going to be difficult for Everton fans, isn't it? What will they want most to avoid relegation or to try and stop us winning the league? It's going to be a tough choice for them.
I mean, there was a quote flying around, wasn't it, the other day? A lad admitted he gets more joy from seeing us lose than seeing Everton win. But, he must have had a long year because we've only lost twice in any competitions. I can't imagine what it's like in his household every week.
But I love how he'd be like thinking people are surprised to hear it.
Yeah. We're not. 25 years or 27 years now, something like that. The clock's been ticking, that you've not won a trophy, and it's us challenging for forward, and you're hoping that we lose a game. You've got bigger fish to fry, mate. You've got bigger things to worry about. And as I said, I fully expect them to roll over, and they'll probably applaud Man City off the pitch. That's the type of fickle fan base that they are, and think we can ply our trade somewhere else and get 3 points further down the line. But the games are running out for Man City, for Everton, and as long as we keep winning, we're going to make two very disappointed fan bases there, because if the impossible happens and we win the league and somehow, Everton go down, I think the City might self-implode because I genuinely don't know what will happen. Can you imagine like Liverpool fans lining the houses, lining the streets with red flags and banners, and these lads are looking forward to a trip to Rotherham and Barnsley next year? That for me would be the end of football. If Putin wants to do what he's doing with Ukraine, then it's not going to top that. Nothing will. It's something that you dream of. If they went down just for 1 year, it would be the best feeling that you could walk into work on a Tuesday morning and go, "Who've you got tonight, young fella?" Oh, QPR at home. Oh, never mind. We're going to the Burnabout tonight.
Yeah.
These sorts of things. But yeah, we've got to take one game at a time, and the next game is the most important. It is cliche, but when we're fighting on so many fronts and the squad that we've got, then we are, as I've said before, we're in this blessed position to be able to challenge, and we've got to enjoy it. We've just got to take the one game at a time, and we've got the momentum. We've got all the aces in our pack, and there is no reason why we can't end the season successfully. And if it's one, if it's two, if it's three, if the unthinkable isn't, it's four that we put in the cabinet. It's a good season. It's a great season. It could be magical. It could be unforgettable. We've just got to enjoy the ride, get along. That's why you're probably here listening to this podcast, because you're a Liverpool fan. You're enjoying the ride. You're on board with all the podcasts that AI are offering. There's a plethora of content, there's a plethora of games, there's a plethora of trophies. We've just, enjoy it while it's here, because we've waited so long to get back to the top of the mountain that, we don't want to fall straight back down it so quickly. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, enjoy the view, but unless you're actually one of the Liverpool players, don't enjoy the view. Get on with your job, please. Don't stand there enjoying the view. It's funny. One of the things as well, we're playing Chelsea, and it's like it's the plastic fans with the plastic rivalry, because that's another. I'm not going too long now, but our true rivalries are with the Manx, the red shirted Manx. Let's face it, the blue shirted Manx were never any sort of rival. If anything, they were slight allies with us, because we had something in common with the blue side of Manchester for a while. And the other, obviously, main rival is Everton. They're our true rivalries. Chelsea, to me, isn't a real rivalry. It was a plastic one that Mourinho kind of kicked off with the shushing, as you mentioned, and the fact that we just played each other so much. But, there's not... They see us as rivals and they see us as enemies and all the rest of it. But to me, they're just another team. They're just another team that's doing well. There's not that same rivalry with them. So I'm sure it'll all get hyped up, and I'm sure we'll see loads of reruns of the big games between us. But, the thing to always remember with this is that it was over the line that time. So that's the thing I always like to remind them of.
Yeah, I should say, the fixtures come out at the start of the season. The two games you look for is United and Everton. And then, whatever else. Well, at the moment, it's probably United, Everton, then Man City, because they're a competitive rival on the pitch in terms of, what they're currently doing in the recent era. But, it's the derby, then it's United, then it's Man City. And then whatever everyone else falls, that's where they fall. That's just how I see it. That's probably how yourself and many other Liverpool fans see it. And as you say, there's nothing better, than playing with your toys and then putting them back in the box. When toys these days are predominantly made from plastic, and that's what Chelsea are. They're a toy. We've played with them many a times. We've enjoyed it. Sometimes we've, not really enjoyed it too much, but 9 times out of 10, we've had our fun, and then we put them back in the box, and then we move on, and then we go and get something shiny and play with that instead.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. You know what? I think we'll leave it on that because we're getting ourselves a bit too excited here for the game. Have you got any predictions or anything for the game? Do you think you can predict it? I don't think I can. Kenny wouldn't predict it the other day.
I would just say, we come away with the trophy. I'd love it to just be within the 90 minutes. I would like it to be as comfortable as, a couple of goals in our favour. I wouldn't want to be having a nervous tension of a cup final where there's a goal in it. If we can get to the luxury position of being within a 2-goal lead, then I would take that all day. I don't want to risk penalties as much as we've got a decent lad in goal. We can save a few pens. We've seen it along the run to the final. I just don't like that jeopardy. I'd rather, for the lads and ladies who are going, go down there and enjoy your day. And if you can get out of there within the 90 minutes and plus, the little parade for a trophy. Luckily enough, these people will catch the coaches and the trains back and get back to the respective homes in the city within good time, because let me tell you, there's nothing worse than trying to run for a train from Wembley. Make sure you get back up north. You've probably done it yourself. It's not a nice feeling.
No, it's not a nice feeling when you've lost a game and you sat on a coach. You've decided to do it that way, and you sat, and then eventually you move, and then you don't move again for ages and stuff. So, yeah, considering it's a national stadium, they've not really sorted out the way out of it very well, have they? But anyway, who cares? It's all part of the fun. It's all part of the adventure. Win or lose, this is it. We support the Reds. And listen, thanks so much, Jay, for today. Thanks to Liverpool for giving us something to talk about again. They always do. And thanks to you for listening. There's loads of stuff, as we've mentioned, on Anfield Index. I hope you can subscribe, because that's definitely the best way to listen, and it definitely makes it easy for us to keep doing what we do. But no trouble if you can't. You put up with the ads, unfortunately, but it's free. We wanted everyone to be able to listen, and now I hope you can, and I hope you do enjoy what you're listening to. And anyone who is a subscriber and gets on the Discord and wants to send us a message on there, feel free to do so, because we'll do our best to talk about the stuff that you want to hear. But for now, from me and Jay, that's it. Enjoy the football, enjoy the final, enjoy being a Red, and we'll see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.